Well, a new Pizza Tower related video from PTG himself just came out, and I feel like I'm 100% obligated to talk about it. It's been at least 7 months since I've seen another video from this channel, but more than anything it felt like an entire year. And that's probably because it almost kinda was. But I mean, what would you prefer, a catalog of bullshit, nonsense, failed promise content delivered every month, or a delivery of content when content needs to be delivered? You'd probably choose the latter, let's be honest. I mean, as much as we all love sitting for garbage, it's nice to have something straight, simple, and to the point in all one package. That being said though, not a lot of these new contents had the most positive responses from the community, so beforehand I'd like to inform you on how this whole situation started till I'll begin talking about the video in question. First off, this just so happens to be a start to another one of PGG's weird experimental phases, where he starts making some questionable decisions purely because he feels like it. This goes back as far as Demo 2 and the removal of the wall jump, Xmas Break's noise being more annoyingly slippery, the infamous nerfed super jump of Western Build version 1, whatever the fuck this was, and now with Hit Stun, Shoulder Bash, and Heat Meter being the longest lasting weird decisions to date. Personally, I'd like to refer to this particularly recent phase as the Jay Leno's phase, because I swear to God, as soon as he changed his fucking profile pic to that Jay Leno's Joker one, he started making these decisions. Upon announcement to some of these changes on the Discord, people's opinions were definitely mixed. Speedrunners most notably were not very welcoming towards this change, seeing it as unnecessary and just downright stupid. Ever since there have been a couple of changes made to it, but it didn't stop bothering the mania against it. But the side of the positive reception and PTG's sheer will to try and make this work kept it around for a couple months. November 22nd, PGG announces that he'll be removing the speed bar in replace of the heat meter, which got a pure and negative response from the community, and rightfully so. Then he went on saying that the heat meter will be placed back in normal mode, and everybody freaked the fuck out, so much to the point where Pizza Tower Talk had to be temporarily removed from the Discord. Until that's right, me, and you can't disprove that it wasn't me because it literally happened after I made a little joke tweet about me recreating Pizza Tower Talk. So PGG made the decision of delaying any further info until the 18th of December. And so here we are. Now believe me or not, I do have some actual goddamn dignity, and I won't just recap every single bit of value from the video. I left the link for it in the description, so I recommend that you watch that first before diving into this one, because I assure you that the rest of this won't make any sense unless you have the proper context. For now, I'll go over the changes that the video did not mention, but instead was seen on PGG's Twitch livestreams where he playtests the game to work accordingly to these decisions. As you may have noticed, the game's UI looks a tad bit more different. The speed bar thankfully ended up being in place, and this glaring thought bubble over here is basically the new reskinned heat meter. And honestly, I kinda like it. I mean, I will miss the more visually complex meter, but I think this strikes a nice balance of not being too complicated to the point where you wouldn't know what it's used for, or too simple where it's just borderline babies mode. So it's good essentially. And speaking of it, it also works part in the new W rank you can now get. Now what in God's name is the W rank? Well, that's where the whole Dust Force-like mechanic PG mentioned in the update plays in. Think of it like an S plus rank with just a little bit more requirements. Some people aren't too big fans of this, saying that it's way too strict and an absurd requirement for completion. Personally, I don't mind this. I'm all for spending large amount of time in levels doing specific challenges for the sake of any small ounce of replayability, so this fits just in line for me. Though from here on out, I can already tell that levels like Gnome Forest are gonna be a complete another pain in the ass to W rank. That level can take you about 10 minutes to S rank normally, 20 if you don't know what you're doing. In coordination with the heat meter, there's also been some unique max heat animations added for Peppino, this popping out effect you also get in max heat, and of course the new enemy heat animations, some of which I can't deny are absolutely brilliant, like the one of this anchovy for example. The TNT sprites have also been made less noticeable and apparent, a change I don't quite understand since there was nothing really wrong with them to begin with. But I guess it lets them be used in more puzzle or fast-paced type situations, and even then the old sprites still sometimes appear here and there. Animations for the pistol and chainsaw have been added to the TV, alongside the gasoline and bullet icons. The ghost transformation has been given a new dash move, which is something I really like. And the Wastejar grounded gravestones have also been redesigned to make them differentiate. And to those complaining for months on end about the grab being replaced by the shoulder bash, the grab was revealed to still be in the final game in all its full previous glory. Yes, not halfly, not in animation, the full-fledged move is back in the game, moved to a different button prompt. truly a beautiful sight to see upon my weak, frail little eyes. For now it behaves a lot more like the grab and golf if you gain some free time in the air. But grandly I don't see it as a big deal because the shoulder bash is still able to carry your momentum. And with that, I guess I can move over to the main topic already. Now despite what I may say in my glorious top voted comment over here, all of these changes aren't actually too bad, and the backlash against some of them has certainly decreased throughout the months. Does that then mean that everything's perfect? Not so. And that mostly relies from the normal mode heat meter itself. Yeah, just like most people, I wasn't initially a fan of the heat meter being in normal mode on its announcement, saying shit like why, or fuck you PTG, or these other famous remarks I've made about the topic. Over time I came to like it a bit more though, in the hopes that it'll turn out better than I expected it to be. But since I see how it is currently, well yes it's better than what it was before, I still don't really like it too much because of how it's implemented. And again, I'm not specifying that any of this is gonna be final, I'm just stating my opinion on what we have now. I don't usually give my full thoughts to stuff like this, but even to this day it's still a thing and levels are literally being tested to work along a form of this, so I count this as an exception. Overall, I don't necessarily think the heat meter is a bad idea. I've stated before that it looks pretty damn fun and cool, and really all it does is add more replayability to an already replayable game, and I'm 100% cool with that. It's just that I don't think that forcing it into the gameplay in its current state is that much of a good idea. Everyone seems to be fine with it, but I'm not. And my opinions matter because obviously I'm objectively better than all of you. Oh, and the whole hit stun mechanic, yeah, it's pretty obnoxious. In heat meter I think it works fine. Kinda. With the whole more combo, less hit stun system, it's actually implemented pretty well. In normal gameplay though, it's just annoying at best. So far this is most notable when the noise starts flying, when the noise spins off a wall. Ground pounding of course I very much despise, and when hitting 3 enemies in a row during Mach 3, which is a regular occurrence that virtually happens in half of the stages in the game. You know, PG's whole reason for having this around is that it creates impact and thus it becomes satisfying. But I'd argue that it's even more satisfying when your character is so powerful that impact doesn't even get a chance to happen. And the small subtle dose of lag in the public demos already conveys that pretty well because yes, impact is still there, it just comes in a few milliseconds per hit and automatically makes the game look 10 times more smoother. I'd say if you are going to have hit stun, give it to only specific combat moves like parry, shoulder bash, pistol, etc. Because not only does it help differ those moves from the rest, but it also doesn't come at the expense of dumbing down the game by a long shot. And PG saying that games don't have enough hit stun is nonsensical, because using it so much for almost every action is the literal reason for why they don't. It's not really a feature that should be overused in any case. But compared to the heat meter stuff, this really is just only minor. Though I will mention that in the update, PG does say that he's not quite too sure if this should go into normal mode in the end, and he'll wait on deciding until he makes playtests on it first. I really hope that by the end it ends up in some sort of hard mode, because with the way it's designed right now, it does not work in tension with the normal mode whatsoever. Want more solid proof? Well, I guess I'll have to go into another one of my in-depth analyses. My main complaint about the heat meter stems from the fact that it can easily get in the way when you acknowledge its consequences. Something that PGG himself seems to decently understand, which is why on November 28th, regarding major game changes, PGG stated that ideally if you aren't too great at the game, you would stay in the middle of the heat meter, and not accidentally end up at max heat level. If this is truly the case even now, then let's look at levels like Entrance for example. The level in total has about 19 enemies before the start of the escape sequence, be it most of them are placed decently far away from each other aside from a few sections that have them very much close. The level design though is including of a lot of linear pathways and barely any alternative ones until you get to the ending of the level. And well, yes, that practically leaves almost no room to avoid any of them, but this would prove that what PG was saying was true and casual players would most likely stay in the middle of the meter where basically nothing happens. But now let's just say that you're like, just slightly above average, and actually kinda good at playing video games. Maybe you're going back into the level because you probably mixed the top in or whatever, or maybe you're just simply trying to get a better rank. You're already familiar with the layout of the level, so you're probably just speeding through it and well shit, by the time you reach the 5th room you're almost at max heat. Yeah, the moment you even try running through the level knowing the layout, like it or not, you always end up in either mad or crazy. And this can go for anything like just simply trying to get an S rank. And you might think, well, yeah, you're just forcing it at that point, speeding through the level is how you get the new W rank, right? But I'm not really talking about top-notch speedrunner levels of speeding through. Again, I'm still mostly casually speaking. because it's really fucking easy to go into max heat. Just look at how much time it takes for the timer on the combo counter to go down. That's about 8 seconds. 8 seconds for a combo timer to start going down. And the absurd thing is that the actual heat timer is twice as long, even on middle ground. Like, there's no way that people won't accidentally be getting into this. And running through the level is not the only way to get bombarded in it anyway. As soon as you even try engaging in the slightest bit of combat, you'll be in another heat level by then. And this can be even more easily accomplished than just casually running through, and as evidence, the footage I'm showing you right now is when the heat meter was at its secondary weakest state. And as a reminder, I'm still talking about the entrance. This is much more prominent in Pizzascape, Ancient, Blood Sauce, and Onward. Levels there are absolutely bloated with enemies enclosed in spaces. Some sections even require you to bash through walls of enemies unless you're very eager to wait out or get hurt. There's even a secret room in Ancient Cheese that gets you up onto 9 combos, which is enough to switch over to next heat level. And same things apply to World 2. Be it there it's not as bad, but just still as apparent. And with its levels being a lot more gimmicky this time around, it only kinda puts off the mechanic even more because of the constant harassment from fast-paced encounters. It really only stops being a problem in everything else after Beach. Most third-world levels tend to contrast from the more destructive speedrun-like layouts seen previously, and they're instead more reliant upon fast-paced level mechanics and open and difficult level design containing only a few hard-hitting enemies put here and there. And World 3 has actual combat sections this time around, so heat meter really doesn't feel out of place here. And from the glimpses I've seen from the newer levels, this also seems to be the case. So then what's the fucking deal? Why in God's name am I complaining about this if it's only a problem in 2 worlds out of 6? Well, that's the thing, I wouldn't. If these weren't literal introductory worlds, with the count of at least 8 long levels. From my point of view, I'd say that most people tend to get invested in the game with a solid base of beginning levels, and well, this doesn't quite do the introduction of this game justice, and more so it just kinda shits on what we had before, which was downright perfect. I know Pizza Tower isn't a game for everyone, but if you ask me, I wouldn't want my first experience of a game to be kicked by a bunch of RNG bullshit anytime I choose to do anything that I think is fun. Again, to actively avoid the heat meter, you can't really be running with no problem about hitting an enemy or interact in basic solid combat. Instead, you just need to be walking around like a bumbling mindless idiot waiting for a slow timer to go down. So God Hand-like mechanic just kinda removes any sense of freedom from the game in turn for focusing on a gimmick for its entirety. It doesn't add any replayability if it's forced in like this. And doesn't at all make the combat itself more unique, because with the new enemy moves and placements, it just kinda makes everything look like one giant mess. And I get that this is all intentional to contrast how hard it will actually be to get a W rank later on, but now we have even more problems because it's a mechanic that's designed a lot more to work with itself rather than be balanced with the rest of the game. And if that's the case, again, there's no reason to not put in a hard mode where it can work as a standalone thing. And when you do that, it'll create even more replayability and will give people more ways to play however the fuck they want to. And in case PGG is watching this, literally there's no problems in making an extra mode like this. And sure, it doesn't even have to be reserved to a basic hard mode, there's no limits to what you can do with the concept. Like maybe have individual switches in the hub that activate it via Hall of Gods from Hollow Knight, or have it be in the form of a secret room or whatever with some collectible. It could also make you spawn a combat room for extra measure. Or maybe just scratch all that and have it be in the outlook of some sort of sandbag waiting somewhere in the level that you have to beat the shit out of a certain amount of times to trigger it. You can even add a slight little detail of hit stun getting progressively stronger the more you hit. Maybe for like faster speedrun reasons you can have specific moves that finish it off in one hit. And you know what, just make it the fucking noise satellite. Yeah, bring that shit back for this occasion. Just anything works better than what we have now. I know that as of recently people are very opinionated about how this should be implemented, but I guarantee you that nobody would give a single shit about it anymore if it's made optional. And honestly speaking, I don't see what's the harm in that. Well, that's all I've got. I can see there being a lot of things to anticipate after I publish this video. Most likely nothing will happen probably, but I'd like to keep an open mind when it comes to stuff like this. Personally, I can't wait for this video to get outdated. Be it for good or bad, I'm on the edge of my seat here when it comes to outcomes. Hell, maybe PTG already disapproved this video the minute it came out. Or maybe when I just finished writing the goddamn script. Then it'll be completely and utterly fucked. But who knows? Maybe the video won't be outdated, and in that case, I'll be the one who told all of you so that Pizza Tower will be a shit-ass game 5 years later. And no one would have expected that.